All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making the plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're out in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing this morning? Another great episode of ASAP in the morning. Got my boys here. We're going to start off at the top and just squeeze on by. Greg, I know you got to be feeling good this morning. Make sure they get that hat up in the picture, too. Make sure it's all in the frame.
Yeah, I feel good, guys. Good morning. It's playoff time. It's showtime, Mahomes time. It's time to make this Super Bowl run. Let's go.
Y'all heard him. He said it's Mahomes time, not showtime. Mahomes time. Mike, I'm gonna segue into you and just say this. Who's Nagy?
Who?
Who's Nagy?
Not my problem.
How you doing this morning, Mike? That's what I like to hear.
I don't
That's
have
what,
words.
a few words this morning. They said Chicago did enough for you this morning. They spoke for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we'll definitely get into that. Just call Matani.
What's going on, guys? It is a beautiful weekend in sports. I got my Heat climbing up that ladder and the Bucks. I don't even know what to wear, like Heat or Bucks. Put me in a weird spot. A good problem to have. I'll take it.
Right. Mr. Baker himself. How you doing this morning, sir?
Oh, just living in the -10 with a -35 wind chill right now. So, yeah, loving it.
Stay in them walls, man. Hey, it's cold out there in Minnesota anyways.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, it is Black Monday, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages. For those that don't know, Black Monday is the official get your ass, excuse my French, out of this office Monday. So that's the first Monday that we have after the NFL season's concluded, where we have been discussing who should be shipped out. And Monday solidifies what we've talked about all year long. So to open it up, I have to clear the floor. I have to put the mic in his face. Mike, let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about Nagy. Let's talk about the Fire Matt Nagy sort of movement you've pressed on us this year, and you were successful, so to speak, in getting that accomplished. How do you feel about it now that Chicago has let Matt Nagy go? Where do we go from here? What's your thoughts?
Well, it's an amazing feeling because it's not just Matt Nagy. We fired Ryan Pace too, and that was the question mark of going into this offseason. There was even rumors that he was going to be upgraded to president of operations, and I pardon my language, Jay, but I damn near shit myself when I saw that tweet because if you can't even draft between Patrick Mahomes and Mitchell Trubisky, how am I going to make you president of operations? But it was a situation to where I've been leading the charge for long more than a year. And for a very long time, I was the only person on the Fire Matt Nagy train. To be completely unbiased and just I think Dustin can agree to, how Chicagoans felt about this was we understood that, or at least many people understood that Mitchell Trubisky was the problem. And that's
right.
why Matt Nagy deserved a couple more years, where for me personally, when we played the Eagles and there was the double doink and we blamed Cody Parkey for that, no one talked about how Cody Parkey had more points than Matt Nagy's offense. No one talked about how we only ran the ball a total of 10 times throughout 4 different running backs. And no one talks about how you force Mitchell Trubisky to try to be something he's not. And that's where I think the standard of, I think Greg can attest to it, the offensive guru from the Andy Reid tree is just a name. It's just a name until proven otherwise.
And to your point, Mike, because I don't think a lot of people, that have just caught on to ASAP Sports and just kind of caught us through half the year.
Right.
Mike has always preached that Trubisky was not the problem. Trubisky is a quarterback that you can win with. Trubisky has the talent. He just needs someone to come in with the X's and O's to put him in the right places, put him in the right, positions to actually be able to utilize his talents to win the game. So seeing that now, fast forward, Mike, how much did Nagy kind of prove your point with the fact that he wasn't the right guy for a quarterback? He wasn't the guy that was going to push the quarterback over.
Right. He proved it time and time again this season. He proved it when Nick Foles won you a game, and the next week you started Andy Dalton just because. And then this week you were going to start Justin Fields after Andy Dalton won you a game, but you only didn't do that because Justin Fields got COVID. Like, we're looking at it from that standpoint of all you asked was for a quarterback, and we gave you 3. We gave you 4. We gave you Mitchell Trubisky because you took that job. Mitchell Trubisky had already been here for over a year, so you didn't have to take that if you didn't truly believe in him. Or you could have made that clear that you would have moved on from him the same way your Arizona Cardinals did with Josh Rosen for Kyler Murray, and you didn't.
Right.
He decided to ride with Mitch, and then he sank with that. And for everybody listening, I am not a Mitchell Trubisky supporter in that regard of thinking this kid is going to be better than Patrick Mahomes or this kid's going to make it one day. I don't. I'm just saying this kid was serviceable, and the defense you had around him, it's a Ryan Tannehill type situation where you could build pieces around him to make this kid look better than what he is. And if you're that offensive guru that you say you are, then you would have made him look a lot better by running the ball, by doing a lot more, making him not have to be a mobile, not a mobile, be a pocket passer. You want him to be more mobile. You want him to be on the move. You want him to just ignore the X's and O's and just do what this kid's good at. Now with Matt, we gave you Andy Dalton. We gave you Nick Foles, who you said you could win with both of them. You didn't. We gave you Justin Fields. You said you could mold this kid into something. You didn't. And now it's one of those situations where I've been preaching it to the choir for years. There's all these kids that are on the practice squad that Ryan Pace has drafted for Matt Nagy, and they remain on the practice squad for 15 plus weeks. Daz Newsome, Thomas Graham, Riley Ridley, Khalil Herbert, and others. And then they come out, and Khalil Herbert rushes for 100 yards 5 weeks in a row, and you're wondering where that's been all season. So Matt Nagy, to just sum it up, he just doesn't utilize talent. I think he's great at what he does, which is he's very motivational. He's someone that the locker room could believe in, but he's not that guy that's going to lead the charge in a room with the X's and O's and figuring out who's on the field and who shouldn't.
He doesn't have that leadership quality. I don't think I don't never really seen it out of that.
No, very egotistical.
There. Now, I kind of want to switch over a little bit to Tanny. I want to bring it over to you. What is your take on it? How do you feel? Not so much because I think Mike and we've all kind of killed Matt Nagy, but let's take it in the Bears' perspective. Where do you see the Bears organization, Tanny, sitting at the moment after this Black Friday or Monday and moving on from Nagy? Where are you at in the mindset of the Bears? What are we doing?
Well, the interesting thing about the Bears, I think that head coaching job is actually it actually looks pretty good. I think they'll have a lot of options. I definitely think they need someone younger to kind of grow with Justin Fields and kind of help him out with what he likes to do. But I don't know, when people fire coaches, though, like I know I'm jumping the gun, like Brian Flores, for example, I'm always like, do you have someone better to replace them, or do you have like a game plan in mind? So I'm kind of curious of what the Bears are thinking and like what direction they're going to go to kind of replace the mindset they originally had when they brought in Matt Nagy.
Now, Tanny, I don't want to get too caught into Brian Flores. We'll talk about him separately. But Gridiron brings up
we'll say that.
We're going to have a whole thing on that because we're going to get on that. But, Gridiron brings up a good point here. Is Brian Flores on the radar for Chicago?
Should be.
Yeah,
absolutely should be.
I think it's definitely a conversation to be had. I think Byron Leftwich, Brian DeBall, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Flores, all the Bryans, every single Brian.
It's the Brian show.
It really is a situation. Even I'm honestly, I hate taking former players, but Jim Harbaugh, if you're serious, bro, like your record was 44-19-1, I believe. And Dustin made that clear. You beat Green Bay 4 times out of the 4 times you played them. I'm all ears to listen to everybody and anybody, as long as Greg, respectfully, I love you, my brother. As long as it doesn't come out of KC or North Carolina University, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Hey,
I'm gonna actually, that's a good segue right over to you, Greg. Do they go general manager first, or is the Bears organization set up to where they need a GM coach?
Yeah, I mean, general manager, I think they should get that first. I know, just speaking as a Chiefs fan, once Brett Veach became the GM here, you started seeing the changes. And if you don't have a good GM, somebody that can, pick the groceries out for you, pick those good groceries, not the spoiled ones, the good ones. It doesn't really matter what kind of coach you get. So GM first, that's what the Bears should be focused on, and then find them a coach, as long as it's not Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore should not get this job.
Or Bill O'Brien. I don't know why that's a
comment. Yeah. Bill O'Brien shouldn't get
No,
it.
that's what he said. He said they better not.
No, don't even speak that.
Yeah,
no. Speak that.
No.
It's not even a conversation we're gonna have.
No way.
Dustin.
I'll leave.
I'm gonna come over to you. We're about to leave it. We're about to leave a little bit in your lap here, because we got the Bears, but we're gonna segue into the Vikings as well. But speaking and staying on the Bears, what do you feel like the Bears should move towards in this? Should they? Because they just got off of a quote unquote offensive-minded guru coach, and we've seen Mike's face there. We've seen what that did for them. Where is their mindset here? What should they be focused on?
It doesn't matter if it's an offensive mindset coach or a defensive mindset coach. They just need to find the right coach for the job. They have a young quarterback in Justin Fields. They have David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and pieces around Justin Fields. They have an improved offensive line by drafting Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum, who are both rookies this year, who are going to anchor the tackle positions the next 4 or 5 years. And they have talent on that defense. So it's not like they don't have talent in the Bears organization. It's just they just had no clear direction of what they wanted to do from the day that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy walked in the door. They need to get a GM first that has a direction that he wants to take this franchise. The GM needs to pick the head coach, and then that head coach needs to establish the system that he wants to put in place by putting great assistants around him. And most importantly, they need to come up with a system that suits Justin Fields' strengths and go from there. No more of this switching back and forth between Dalton and Fields, or Trubisky and Foles like last year. Stick with Fields, build the offense around him, and go from there, because the only way they're going to find out if Fields is their franchise quarterback is to let him play, put the pieces around him, and build from there.
Right. Now, before we move anywhere, Baker, we're going to stay in Minnesota. 10 below, you said?
I'm in Wisconsin, but yes, 10 below, which is not quite as cold as Minnesota.
Snow is snow at this point, right?
Oh, no, we have about 15 inches of snow outside on the ground.
Well, it's safe to say you're boxed in right now.
Yeah, I'm boxed in today. I'm not going nowhere.
So, going forward, let's switch our gears. Let's switch our focus over to the Vikings. I'm just going to leave the floor open for you to kind of get that off your chest. Where do you feel that Minnesota's at? Where should we be looking at as possible head coach candidates out in Minnesota? And what's the direction we're moving at from here?
All I can say to Mike Zimmer is don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. This team is far too talented on offense and on defense to be where they are right now. 7-9 last year, 8-9 this year. 2 years before that, they were 10-6 and won a playoff game. But if you look at Mike Zimmer's track record, he has a losing season followed by a playoff appearance, followed by a 500 season, followed by a playoff appearance. And it was just kind of inconsistency at its finest.
Right.
Rick Spielman, I'm honestly surprised they let go, just because he has had a lot of good draft picks that have helped this team out, and he has brought in a lot of pieces to make this team a better organization. It's just that I think Mike Zimmer is so 1980s and 1990s that he refuses to kind of catch up with the times, and has really started to get to him the last couple of years. And you could tell by the end of this season that he lost that locker room, going to the Kellen Mond comments at the end of the year and just a lot of the stupid coaching decisions he made in the fourth quarter that I think costed Minnesota 4 or 5 games this year based on some of the decisions he made. You can kind of tell that he knew the end was already near earlier in the season. So letting him go is not a surprise to me. The team is in position where they want to be. They know exactly their identity they want to have. They have Kirk Cousins, who he's not an elite quarterback, but he's also not a quarterback that's going to lose you games. He can win you games. He's got plenty of talent around him with Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, an improving offensive line. They still have a good defense, even though they battled injuries the last couple of years. So I think now they just need to find that coach that is an offensive-minded head coach, not a defensive-minded head coach, and then the coach that can come in and utilize those pieces to the best of their ability. Eric Bieniemy to me is
real quick. There was one offensive-minded coach that just became available.
There is.
Matt Nagy's available for you.
Yeah, but no. Matt Nagy better take this year off, or he better go coach high school or something. But if Minnesota is going to go offensive-minded, I think Eric Bieniemy is the perfect fit for Minnesota, mainly because their offense is so similar to Kansas City when you look at the pieces they have around it. Yes, the quarterback is not nearly as good as what Kansas City has, but they have the receivers, they have a running game, and they have a lot of pieces where I think Bieniemy could come in there and just basically kind of let Kirk Cousins do his thing, as opposed to Zimmer trying to run the ball 30, 35 times, taking the ball out of Cousins' hands. And then eventually you have Dalvin Cook, who battles injuries because he carries the ball so much. And then even yesterday, I don't know how much of the Bears game Mike watched yesterday, but the crowd was booing Mike Zimmer in the final 2 minutes of the game because Justin Jefferson was 7 yards away from breaking Randy Moss's team record, and Zimmer runs the ball 3 times instead of just throwing a couple passes to Justin Jefferson. That alone right there kind of shows you that he lost that entire locker room, because everybody on Minnesota even said they didn't understand why they didn't call a passing play to get Jefferson that record.
Yeah. I want to kind of swing over to you again, Mike, because we're in that division still. Let's take a broader outlook and look at the division itself. We got the Packers. Packers are in the playoffs. They've been in the playoffs. They've been kind of owning that division for a while now. We still got the question marks of Aaron Rodgers. What happens with Aaron Rodgers? Does Aaron Rodgers come back next year? If he doesn't come back, Mike, I think the panel, we all would agree. Then we have questions on Devontae Adams. Then we have questions on Aaron Jones.
He's gone. I don't even think he's
Who, Devontae?
Yeah, Devontae's gone if Aaron's gone. He'll do the franchise tag for a year, but he's gone then.
Right. So you got Aaron Jones, you got Devontae, you got Scanley, isn't he? Yeah. So you got those dudes right there that, and out just before I even touch the defensive side of the football, but just those offensive guys that already have made it known that they're not sure if they're going to be here if Aaron Rodgers is not here. Right. So looking at that, you got Minnesota without a head coach, Chicago without a head coach or without a general manager, and the Lions are still at the San Diego Zoo. So where do we look at the NFC, this division, from a standpoint of outside looking in? Where do we stand at? Who is the front runner really?
Right.
Or is it up for grabs next year?
Yeah, to me, it's open season. I don't know about next year. I think next year is more of like it's going to be a very inconsistent year on how the next 5 to 10 years is going to look. I think anybody could walk away with that division, to be honest. But that's until everybody gets settled into what they're trying to do. Like, it'll be for Dustin's point, for the Vikings, it's going to be a situation. Okay, it's a first-year head coach. For the Bears, it's going to be a first-year head coach. For the Packers, it's either going to be Jordan Love or something else going on. And for Detroit, they're still a couple years away. But to me, Detroit's the only person going into this offseason perfectly sound and having an idea of what they're going to move forward with. Whereas with the Bears, really all you have an idea of is, okay, there's Justin Fields. Like that's really all we're looking at. And you look at it, Robert Quinn finishes the year with 19 sacks. You have Roquan Smith still. You have people. Dustin, I don't know how much of the game you were watching, but I even heard to the point they were like, oh, the Bears defense is good. They have Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith, and no one said a word about Khalil Mack. And I was just kind of like, okay, like that's fine. Like they were talking about going.
But is that an underlying tone? Is that an underlying tone that there's a possibility that they try to look to move Khalil Mack, get some return from him and rebuild on that?
Right. Personally, for me, I think you get rid of all of them. Except Roquan Smith and except probably Jalen Johnson. Other than that, I think, you clean the house just to get the salary cap off for your new GM and give him really a fresh start. I think to get into everybody, Jay, before I'll handle the Bears very quickly because we've already been discussing them. But I think the only guys that are safe, like I said, Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson, Justin Fields, like Dustin pointed, the two tackles that are rookies. You have a couple of the other offensive linemen I like, Whitehair, Daniels, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney. That's really it. David Montgomery, like that's it. Everybody else.
That was enough to suit a team.
It's not though. It's really not when you think about it. It's 2 defensive players and no,
I'm just joking.
6 guys on offense. Like everybody else, if you can get something for Robert Quinn, he just had 19 sacks in a year without Khalil Mack. If it's a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, do it because that's a lot of money. People forget how much money he's getting paid. Khalil Mack, I think you could still get a 1st round pick out of Khalil Mack without a question. So I think we should definitely do that, especially because we gave ours to the Giants. And for the Packers, Jordan Love ain't it, bro. It was the final week of the season. And you still brought in Rodgers. Like it's not, and you still lost to the Lions. Like it's not good. It's not good, and the future is not bright from that standpoint. I think the only standpoint that I'm really confident in for the Packers is Matt LaFleur. And to Dustin's point, they're great in Minnesota. That team is great. Their chemistry is great. Everything they do is fun. The only problem is Kirk Cousins. He's going to be getting paid a lot of money next year. And that's really unfortunate when you've been here. It's going on 5 years now next season and not one playoff appearance. That's bad. Like that's very bad. So it's like Mitchell Trubisky had 2, bro. Like it's at that point, like at least, you could say that. But I think the main thing with the Vikings is they can run this division. I think if Aaron Rodgers leaves, if the Bears need a hiatus and they need to go hibernate for a little bit, if the Lions are still figuring it out, the Minnesota Vikings as constructed right now, the team itself is in win now mode. They just don't win now. Like that's the difference. So you bring in a head coach, like Dustin said, Eric Bieniemy or whoever, Leftwich, whatever you want to do. I truly do think that they run the board for a little while until teams start to make adjustments.
Yeah. So real quick,
to your point, Mike, what you were saying about Jordan Love. If you look at Jordan Love's first 2 seasons compared to Aaron Rodgers' first 2 seasons, he actually has better numbers than what Aaron Rodgers put up through 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
So I know a lot of people say that Jordan Love is not the answer and things like that, and I hate the Packers just as much as you do, but I'm not going to say Jordan Love's not the answer because nobody knows because he's not out there for extended.
No, I think he's going to be average, but everything I've watched off of Jordan Love, I don't see that really changing.
I think he'll be average, like you said, but I think they will.
Oh,
we lose that.
I think we lost him for a second.
It was that Minnesota.
Wisconsin. Yeah, it's that 15 inch. It's that 15 inches of snow out there.
Yeah, it really is though. It really is. It happens to me all the time.
But we'll take a second here. I do want to highlight today, you guys who are out there, we are debuting a show that to me is one of the shows I really am proud of. It is an all women's show. It's a full women's cast. Sensei Alana, she's going to be hosting it. Janaea Nicole, Ruth will be on there as well. We're going to have a lot of just focusing on women's sports, bringing some more, notoriety to it, some more highlight on it, some more spotlight on it, focus, however you want to put it, just to women's sports in general. So please tune into that. That's something that myself, I'm very proud to have out there and want to get as many viewers and many people out there viewing that, watching that, because, not to change the course on what we're talking about here today, but women are very, very vigorously taking over and jumping their presence into the sports world. Not only, of course, in the actual playing sports, but talking about and just being that presence on camera and behind the microphone. So that's something that we want to highlight as well. And that's something else that we want to try to give back to young women out there that have a desire to do the same thing and to get to this point. We want to just be able to, showcase that you can do whatever the heck you guys are able and want to do. So that's what that show, first and foremost, is in regards to. Please tune into that, get the word out, let everybody know. Getting back to business, you're fired, Black Monday, right? So let's talk about Brian Flores, because, that was a super duper surprise to me. Greg, we kind of hit on it in the beginning. I want to go to you first. What are your thoughts?
Miami, this is why they have never won nothing. This is when I saw that, I was like, he did what? What? Like, okay, you start off 1-7. Okay, granted, you win, what was it, 7 straight games, got back in the hunt. You swept the Patriots for the first time in forever.
And let me add real quick before you go, because on that 7, let's make a notation on that. 7-7. The first team in NFL history to have a 7-game winning streak and a 7-game losing streak in the same season.
Yeah, the same season. Yeah. And at 1-7, a lot of teams quit. And they were able to, get it right, and start winning. And for him to get bounced, I feel like the Dolphins had a pretty good season. Now, would you love to make the playoffs? Sure. But winning 7 straight, getting back in it after starting off, 1-7, you swept the Patriots, like I said, for the first time in forever. There's no reason to fire Brian Flores. And I feel like I don't want to bring this up, but I am going to say, but Matt Rule can suck at Carolina for 2 years and he still has his job. So is this turning into a, hey, we only give black coaches 2 years. If you're not in a conference championship game as a black coach in 2 years, we gotta let you go, or what's really going on?
It is sad.
It's starting to get concerning.
Yeah.
And if Houston fires their coach, I feel like that's kind of wrong too, because
they didn't have
Houston
nothing.
Had nothing. Nothing. And they were able to still win.
They don't even have a quarterback.
Exactly. They didn't have a quarterback. So
excuse me, Jay.
I just had
Mills has done one hell of a job this year. I'll have to give him credit.
He's supposed to be someone's third stringer.
Statistically speaking, he was the second best rookie quarterback this year.
You want to know why?
I gotta give him the credit.
He threw 5 passes a game.
And that's perfectly fine. But those 5 passes were better than any of the 35 from Justin Fields. So
you know what? There was a couple games I watched in Houston where I thought I was watching Army football.
Oh yeah, it does see that vibe. You get that vibe.
It was pretty bad. Hey, real quick, Greg, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But for the audience out there, I'm plugging all day. Yoel's in the comments. He is our host for Bring It, which will be on today as well. So please join us back later for Bring It. But no, Greg, going back to you made a very, very, very good point. And we've talked about this lightly before on a previous episode of ASAP in the Morning, which you can catch every day, Monday through Friday, right here on ASAP Network. But we made we had a very light conversation about this before, because the rule that was implemented by the NFL in the diversification sector of coaching, it made it to where you had to interview these guys, and you had to get like, what was it, 2 interviews is the new rule? Is it 2?
Yeah,
I think so too. Yeah.
2 interviews, and I feel like doing it that way kind of makes it easier for us not to get hired. And understand my psyche on that, because if I have a guy in mind, and I'm just going to use Nagy because we already talked about Nagy so much, his name is just out there. I have a guy in mind. I want Nagy. I know I have these other 2 candidates I have to interview, right? I don't give a fuck who they are at this point. They're not even on my radar to get hired. So I'm going to go out and I'm just going to pick 2 random candidates that either are on my list for future candidates. So this will trump them into the conversation so someone else can give them a try and I can kind of take a more in-depth look at them. Or B, just to get out of the penalty box. And now here's the second degree of that, Greg, which you just brought up here. Is there a time frame where, all right, we had to do this to kind of meet obligations, so to speak, but now we're ready to move on? So, you know what I mean? We got our little 2-year gap out of the way. So we're kind of in what's the word I'm looking for? We met our requirements, so to speak. So we can kind of move forward freely. And I agree with you, Greg. And I don't want to make it a racial thing totally. Because obviously that's not the direction we're trying to push this. But this is a rule that is a racially inflicted or focused rule. But do you think it's kind of loosely written, so it's kind of being abused?
I think there are some instances, Jay, where Black coaching candidates do get that interview just so, like you said, they could meet the quota and, everything's good and, da-da-da-da-da. And I just wish that coaches like a Brian Flores can get the 3, 4, 5 years to try and do something.
Right.
Like a Matt Rule who hasn't done nothing. He can get a 3rd season. And Brian Flores, who has done more than Matt Rule in the same time frame, he gets fired. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
It does.
And Greg, can I just say real quick? Greg, here's where I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, but like just to see it like for what it is, like from a front office standpoint, you look at Brian Flores, he's gone 23-25, and that's just about 500. And then you look at this year, you lost 7 straight, and then you won 7 straight. So that's about 500. Now there's 0 playoff experience throughout his entire career, and he is he doesn't like to be known as one, but we all know what it is. He's a defensive-minded guy. And that's perfectly fine. But when Tua is as bad as he is and as injury-prone as he is, you have no real run game. Do you think this was more of we need to get someone in there who's an offensive genius who has playoff experience, because Tua is not that guy? And the problem is, if you had Deshaun Watson there, if you had Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, it wouldn't matter what Brian Flores is good or bad at, because at the end of the day, those guys are going to do what they do, and you don't need to baby them. Right now, Brian Flores is the type of guy, he check in with you. He'll make sure you're doing your thing, but he's not going to coddle you. You know what I mean? He has no problem bringing in Fitzpatrick. He has no problem bringing in Brissett. He has no problem bringing in other guys. With a Tua situation, if the front office of Miami is truly all in on Tua, which I don't know if they are, but from this move, now I'm questioning if they are or they aren't, because I feel like they're trying to bring in someone who is that offensive-minded guy who can fix Tua, who can fix that problem. And that's the GM kind of saving his own ass from the Tua pick in the beginning, more of than Brian Flores being fired because of all the great reasons that you brought up. But it's definitely something reasonable. And the Carolina example, Greg, right on the head, because that's god awful. And I'm not going to do that. Like Matt Nagy gets 4 quarterbacks in 5 years, and Brian Flores can't even get good 2. So like I get where you're coming from.
Mike, you actually hit it on the head. That is the exact reason why the Dolphins parted ways with Brian Flores, because they plan to go all in for Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And if they're going to go in for Deshaun Watson and trade Tua, they want the offensive-minded head coach to follow.
Okay.
So that brings me to just call me Tanny. I'm gonna say that all day now. I want to position it to you,
Right.
because one thing I want to make sure that we stay away from, me myself, but also us as a whole, is making this a racial thing.
But Jay, before you go, like sometimes it is though. Sometimes you do have to see it for what it is, and other times.
And you're right.
Sometimes, yeah.
You're right. So, but I want to open this to a broader spectrum.
Right.
Hear me out. So we've focused and we've talked about this Rudy rule, and the Rudy rule, let's be honest, it does focus on black.
Right.
They say minority, but it's black. Correct. When are we going to see that word be what it is, in minority and not black? When are we going to start seeing more Hispanic coaches? When are we going to start seeing other racial coaches get these opportunities as well? Do you think that's in the card deck here in the next few years, where that's going to be integrated into it, to a little bit more defined of this rule?
I mean, I get the spirit of the rule, but it's always tough to, I don't want to say forcibly make people make those kind of decisions. Like, I get the spirit behind it. It's just, I don't know. When I first heard about this rule, it just didn't quite make any sense from a practical perspective, right?
Right.
You guys can obviously interview these guys and be like, all right, cool, I hit the quota, and that's it. So I feel like it's almost like, in a way, it's kind of backfiring a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have someone in mind, you have someone in mind. Then if you tell me, let's say I have some random job, it doesn't even have to be, in football. But if I have someone in mind and you forcing me to interview 2 other people,
I'm not even taking it seriously.
Less likely, just even out of spite, I might just go, okay, all right, like not even listening. You know what I mean? So I feel, I get the spirit, man, and I wish I had a better solution for it, but I just don't.
It's one of those catch-22s.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, obviously, the minority population is growing year after year. So I think there'll be more opportunities, but I just don't see this particular rule working. Maybe someone come up with something better, but I just haven't seen it really in play from a practical perspective.
Perfect. Well, before we move on from Black Monday, anybody else before we move on want to snap a snippet? Anybody want to snap a snippet?
Just a little bit, Jay, because we were just talking about it in the chat, and we're looking at Nathaniel Hackett. He's the offensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, I guess, because he doesn't call plays. But he was with the Jaguars. What'd you say, Dustin? 2016 to 2018?
Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator with the Jaguars in 2016 to 2018, and they fired him because he did a horrible job. So it makes no sense that they would even bring him in for an interview. Right.
So they're interviewing Nathaniel Hackett to be the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, you fired this man before, and this is where it does come into it, is Eric Bieniemy's out there. Brian Flores is out there, and you're interviewing Nathaniel Hackett, someone who's been fired from your office not even 5 years ago. Like, to me, it makes me, to lack of a better words, like, that's just effed up. Like, that's what are we talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that's why you are who you are, and that's why you'll never change. And I think, it doesn't need to be about race, but sometimes it does. And sometimes you need to be open eyes and open ears to seeing what the real picture is and the validity of what this is. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. And this is just me as a white male from horrible places throughout the city of Chicago. When they were drafting in 2020, and I saw Mac Jones's face in front of the Chicago Bears panel I was like, if you take this white boy over Justin Fields, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to lose my mind because we've never had a black quarterback like that. We've never had someone of diverse color being a quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And it was a question mark to me to whether they would do it. And when they did it, listen, I'm not saying I'd ever leave my team, but my free agent contract got a little bit extended. And now it's a little bit more extended even more today because today was a great day. But this happens throughout the league to where, especially the Broncos, I didn't think they would take Teddy Bridgewater. I didn't because that is traditionally not what they do.
Right.
They will take a 6'6" white quarterback that looks just like
the
John
tallest tree that throws a football.
If he looks and sounds like John Elway, you have the job. Like even if you're an Uber driver, hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm just Uber driver. Well, come to the field with me today. Like we'll see what we can do.
Can you throw a hoagie? Throw a hoagie?
It really is like that. But to Dustin's point, you fired this man. That'd be like it's just awful, bro. It's like, what are we talking about? Why is this even a question?
And just to make one more point on that, Mike, Zach Taylor, who's the head coach of the Bengals, Zach Taylor sucked for the first 2 years.
Very long time.
Okay, and 2-3 years, and they got Joe Burrow, and then all of a sudden he's this great coach, but he got a chance,
right,
to recover, to put his personnel on the field,
to get the personnel,
game
to get
plan,
Joe Burrow, to get Jamar Chase. They gave him time,
right?
Whereas Brian Flores, I'm trying to think of other coaches. Even how the Bears did Lovie Smith the few years back.
He went 10-6.
10-6, and they're like, we don't need you no more.
So Mark Trestman.
Mark Trestman, who did nothing.
Yeah. It was bad. It was bad. Look, I still, to this day, this is why I wear the B hat, because I'm still living in the Lovey days. I'm never gonna leave the Lovey days.
Yeah, Lovey Smith was a great coach. Lovey Smith was a great coach.
Before we gateway into another segment, I will leave you with some wise words from my friend Dustin here. And we can all agree on this. If Hackett gets an interview over Benamy or Leftwich, it's a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face.
Definitely.
But there is our Black Monday, You're Fired segment. All right. Let's go ahead and move over, though. We'll talk about the Week 18. Before we talk about the results of Week 18, I just got to flop this up.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
I just got to flop this up. So a couple of things before we see our beautiful faces again, and we got this graphic on the screen here. So let's start on the AFC West side. Put your hat up in the screen again. Where's it at? Great. Yes, I'm saying. So we got Kansas City taking on, possibly Ben Roethlisberger in his last game.
Upset alert.
Nope.
Upset alert.
Nope.
Yeah, right.
Call him Teddy. We got.
They better not lose that game. Dang.
Greg, can I ask you something just real quick though?
Sure.
All right, so listen, Greg, I'm gonna say this from just Mike spitting. I was up late last night. I was a little bored, and I went, man, I know 2 free agents the Pittsburgh Steelers could call right now and do this last dance with. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 1-game elimination game. How do you feel about it, Greg?
Please don't call them. Because
what if they call them, Greg? What if Big Ben gets on the phone and says, "Hey, yo, one last go, let's run it." Pouncey comes
First
back.
Of all, if Big Ben calls and says, "Hey, yo," if he answers the phone call with "Hey, yo," AB's gonna get on the plane right then. I think AB just wants a friend. AB just wants a fucking friend. Did you guys see what he said about Brady? He was like,
dude, when I heard that, I was so butthurt for Brady, but
did you guys get a chance to watch the podcast he was on? The podcast he was on, he was like mad disrespectful to the interviewers and everything.
To everybody. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you guys, we're not about to get on Brady or AB. We're not about to do it.
It was a weird interview, though. It was not.
It really was. And the one thing I'll emphasize on that, Mike, that made it so weird to me is I'm going to take you guys back to Oakland. remember, guys, whenever AB is in this like mismatic state of mind, he's in third person at all times. And in that freaking interview, but not all the time, Mike, because sometimes when he's in this like I'm focused on football mode, he talks about the team and he doesn't mention AB or he mentions what's going on. When he's in this manic state, I don't know if he has depression. I don't know what it is that he suffers from, but I'm at the point where I'm 100% convinced he has a mental disability going on right now. But he's always in third person. And then he takes himself out of the third person, almost talks about himself in fourth person. So AB is really a nutcase right now. But
I know that he's always been weird. But can we all agree that since that hit that Vontaze Burfict put on him, that he has completely gone off his?
He's not weird.
I would say that was it. That was it.
I think that hit messed him up to the point where
for life.
Yeah. I really do, because if I watched that hit again yesterday just because I wanted to see how long ago it was. And if you watch that hit over, he was hit so hard that his neck completely went down and snapped back. It literally looked like he broke his neck before he hit the ground.
Just the whiplash alone.
And then he when he hit the ground and woke up, his hands were spazzing so bad from the hit.
He was
I think he has permanent brain damage from that shot.
It only takes a little bit, you guys. It only takes a little bit. A TBI is something that a lot of people don't understand, but it only takes a little bit and it alters you. But let's bring that graphic back up. This is definitely a game that I feel like us here at ASAP Sports in the Morning. This is something that we've talked about all year. Buffalo and the Patriots. I felt like throughout this season, ASAP in the Morning has talked about the Patriots, obviously, with Mac Jones and the offensive, player of the year as far as the rookie. And then the Bills. We've talked about them in the beginning of the year, how they came out, how that was starting. And we've matched them up a couple of times on this show. So I'm really excited to see what the outcome of Pittsburgh, the Patriots and the Bills are. Anybody else on that one?
Patriots Bill. This is they split this season series, right? 1-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and each team won at each other's venue. So the Patriots won in Buffalo, and Buffalo won at New England.
I like it. No, I like it. That's perfect.
And this is where, Dustin?
This will be in Buffalo, where weather conditions are not going to be ideal.
And what do Buffalo not do very well, guys?
Run the football in terrible
they
conditions.
run it. They just run it with their quarterback. They run it. They just don't use their running back.
But we know how that ends,
True.
But you would hope they would have learned their lesson from the first time.
It's like I said on the show on Friday. If New England can keep this game close, Bill Belichick is going to put Mac Jones in position to win that game. It's not going to be he's not going to make Mac Jones do too much. If that's a one-score game, Belichick's going to put Mac Jones in position to give that team a victory, and that alone gives New England a great shot to win this game.
Right. So this brings us to which will probably be a conversation within itself. So before I bring this up, I'm going to let Greg take off on this one in the beginning, because I know he has a lot to say about his foes over there. But this game here, the Oakland Raiders versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, before you go, Greg, before anyone takes a seat on this one, let's put this in perspective for the people out there watching. Cincinnati, I'm going to sum it up. Decades of colossal zoo poop. And they've turned it around. There was question marks about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow tears his ACL, MCL. Come back, they get his boy Jamar Chase. There's questions about him in preseason. Can he catch the ball? Was it a good draft pick? And now we're talking about Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs, hosting a playoff game at home. Rookie of the possibly, arguably, offensive rookie of the year on the team, comeback player of the year candidate in Joe Burrow. So much good things to say. Then you flip the script, guys. You're the Oakland Raiders. They come in, they're struggling. It looked like they were finally turning over a new leaf. John Gruden, and what happened to that debacle, we're not going to get into it. Henry Ruggs, with what happened in that situation. And then last week, you got the number one corner, top 5 corner in the league, gets a DUI. So this team has overcome so much. So let's go ahead to you, Greg. Oakland Raiders, Cincinnati Bengals. Where do we sit on this one?
Yeah, I'm in that one. I'm gonna go with the Bengals. I know that everybody wants Derek Carr to win this playoff game so we can be a certified, top 10 quarterback and, and all that. But I just think that the Bengals have the better team. They may not have the better, defense, but I just feel like Burrow and Chase, they'll make enough plays in this game. Yeah,
I gotta laugh at this. This is hilarious, Anthony Price. You're dead right.
He was last night. He was definitely, yeah. But I look for the Bengals to win this game. Look, it's a miracle that the Raiders even made it this far.
Right.
And I'm trying to make sure I say his name right. Rich, is it Bisaccia?
Bisaccia, yeah.
Bisaccia, okay.
No.
He needs to be their coach. He needs to be their permanent coach because he did a heck of a job coming in and being able to keep this team stable enough to make this run. Of course, they had to have some things, a fall, in their favor. But
Greg, would you be afraid of? Would you be afraid of this him possibly having a Nate McMillan effect?
It's that is another possibility, yes, where it just worked for that one time and then it kind of,
because there were so many emotions involved. There were so many other, because I mean, I think about it like this, and you guys have probably heard me throughout this year talk about this, but I'm going to take you guys back to David Carr being on the podium after the morning after the Henry Ruggs situation, and him holding back tears and holding back all those emotions on how hard it is to be a leader of a team and have those type of situations pop up, and you still got to hold face. So is that something that Rich was kind of just dropped into, so the team itself already had all those emotions and all that stuff bubbling underneath them, so it propelled them themselves? Or is it Rich?
I mean, I believe that Rich, I think he does a good job with the personnel that he has. Derek Carr, here's always been my thing with Derek Carr. Derek Carr does not suck. I get that. But my thing is, okay, when it's time, I need you to make a play. I need you to make a throw. Can you do it? Now, he did it last night. Now we're going to see. Because if he comes out in this playoff game and have a bad game, I don't want to hear nothing about how he's a top 10 quarterback. If they go out here and they get blown out. So even if they lose the game, if Derek Carr throws for like 250, 300 and, do it, okay, cool. Then, okay, he can be top 10. But if he and he stinks it up, he don't get to be in that top 10 no more.
That's fair.
He don't get to be in that. So that's just what it's playoff time. Derek Carr fans have always said, well, he never had a chance. Well, this is it. So now we going to see if he is that top 10 quarterback.
So I want to pivot over to my stat guy here, Dustin. Dustin, let's talk about the god-awful decision-making that happened on the sideline of the LA Chargers. Let's talk about that. How the hell do you call a timeout? 2 seconds left.
Well, no, the Raiders called it with 2 seconds left, but they called it with 33 seconds left.
Regardless, right?
Yeah.
Regardless. But how the
And the
I
funny
mean-
thing is, if you watch the post-game handshakes, the Raiders flat out told Austin Eckler that they were going to take a tie. And then as soon as they told Austin Eckler that, you could just see his face like really, like seriously, we called a timeout knowing that you were going to give us a tie.
I missed
The
that.
Raiders-
Did that really happen?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
go to the post-game
100%.
handshake, and if you can read lips
No.
enough, I think it's either Max Crosby or somebody was shaking Eckler's
It was
hand
Crosby.
and literally said we were going to take a tie, and Eckler's face, like you could see his jaw just drop. Like,
And then me and Greg were talking about this as well, Dustin, is on the sideline. If you looked at Rich,
he wasn't doing anything. He even said,
no.
let's not even kick it.
Rich went to Gannon, and you can kind of, me and Greg were even talking about, you can kind of read his lips. Rich said, we're going to run this one out.
Yeah, run it out. Yep.
They were going to literally take the delay of game, run another
run this
play,
bitch
and then
out.
they would not have had to call another snap after that because they would have been too deep to kick a field goal, and that's exactly what the Raiders' plan was.
Well, the delay of game would have gave him a 10-second runoff.
Yeah, but then they
I
would've
think it
still
would have been.
Yeah.
They would have still had to run the third down play, though. But I'm saying instead of it being like 3rd and 4 when the Chargers called the timeout, it would have been 3rd and 9 plus the 10-second runoff. So then they could have literally just centered the ball, knelt it, and then walked off the field in a tie.
And just for the that we might have an average fan or a newcomer or something like that out there, let's break down what we're talking about here, guys. In a normal game, 4th quarter, 3rd quarter, 2nd quarter, 1st quarter, normal game settings, what they did was not that bad. We're talking about overtime, guys. We're talking about overtime with a clock that's already running. We're pretty much running low on the play clock. We're basically under a minute. We got 2 plays left. If the Raiders don't call a play, the game's over. It's a tie game. San Diego and the Las Vegas Raiders are both in the playoffs. If the Raiders kick a field goal and make it, Raiders in the playoffs, San Diego's eliminated. Raiders kick a field goal and they miss it, San Diego's in the playoffs, Raiders are eliminated. So at this point, in the decision of the Raiders head coach's head, we have the ball. We control our destiny. We're in no matter what. No matter what, I have the ball. I'm in the playoffs. San Diego calling that timeout stopped their only chance of making the playoffs that they had control with.
Can we
So
fire
that's
Brandon
where we're
Staley?
at. And go ahead, Tanny. Go ahead and
Can we fire him? I mean, it's not even just that call. I was going in and out, but every time you see little mistakes, like him going for it on 4th down on his own with like 18 or something, it was just like a lot of boneheaded plays. And I'm looking like,
Idiot.
I didn't even know that they whispered at the end, so it's even mind blowing that
Yeah.
they literally just kicked themselves out of the playoffs by calling it.
Derek Carr said the same thing after the game too when talking to Michelle Tafoya. Literally, he said when the Chargers called that timeout, it changed our mindset because the Raiders were content to let the game run out. They did I think they did a zoom in shot of a random Pittsburgh Steeler fan that was sitting in the crowd, literally complaining because he literally knew exactly what the Raiders were trying to do. He knew they were purposely trying to tie to put both those teams in and eliminate the Steelers, and yet the Chargers had to get stupid and literally cost themselves a playoff spot by calling a timeout when there was.
But also,
I'll take it.
But also, I mean, this is what Chargers fans are going to have to deal with now.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Staley thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, and this is going to keep him from getting to the playoffs, winning playoff games, getting to where they want to go. You can't always look at numbers and say, well, this percentage says does this. Oh, this percentage says does that. You have to have a feel for the game. You are a coach. Do you see Bill Belichick be like, well, this says, well, we got to go for it on 4th down. It says we got a 60%. Hey, what are we talking about?
And it's funny.
No sense.
It's funny that you say that because right when Justin Herbert threw that touchdown pass with no time left on the clock, I said they were going for 2. I'm honestly surprised.
I was thinking too.
I'm honestly surprised they did not send the offense out there for 2 points and lose the game that way.
Exactly. I mean, you got to have a feel for the game and what's going on. The great coaches, whether it's Belichick, Andy Reid, they don't go by numbers. So now, every once in a while, I'm sure they check and say, okay, this percentage is this, and then they kind of, go from there. But they don't solely make decisions off of what analytics say.
We should change this. For these teams that go off all these analytics, that analytic guy, whoever the hell they're calling to find out what the analytic is at that moment, he should be the one we're interviewing after the game. Like, it shouldn't be Brandon Staley. I should have his ass on there. Excuse my French. I should have him on there, and I should be like, look, what analytic did you see? And since it failed, what are the percentages? What changed? How much percentage did that fail change? The situation. You know what I mean? But I totally agree, Mike.
What's up?
Going over to you. Gridiron brings up a big point here, a great point, I should say. I don't know which is worse: Seahawks throwing the ball when they had Lynch, or the Chargers calling that timeout in the Raiders game. Mike,
Wow.
you got to make a choice.
I would say the Seahawks is a lot worse, a lot bigger game. But it's upsetting, man. It's upsetting when you have a team like the Chargers missing the playoffs and a team like the Colts missing the playoffs, and I have to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers literally just give Greg a bye week, even though it's not a bye week.
I'm going to go the opposite, though. I think that the Chargers' decision yesterday was worse because the players didn't get to decide it. Russell Wilson still threw the ball. They had no say in it. Literally, he just with his hand just cost them a playoff.
No, right. It's definitely worse, but I mean, the stakes at what we're at cost is a lot more. Like, no one thought the Chargers were going to the Super Bowl or going to win the Super Bowl. Now, the Seahawks were there. Like, they were in that moment. It was about to be over. And then
one play.
With the bag. Yeah.
One play for a ring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we move on from this subject, I do want to bring in our number one fan, man. We really appreciate you every day here on ASAP in the morning, Damien. But Damien brings up a good question. Do you guys think that the teams or the refs rigged the game to get the Steelers in, since this is Big Ben's last year? And before I pass that around, you guys, you hear me often. I'm a guy that I always say stories sell. And I think these organizations make sure they keep certain stories alive because they do sell. This particular one, I'm not jumping on that conspiracy bandwagon and saying that this was hoaxed. And the reason being is analytics. Analytics said it was right. Analytics said, call that timeout, Brandon.
Yeah.
And Brandon called the timeout. Again, I want to interview the guy that Brandon called. I want to interview the guy that sent the iMessage to his iPad on the sideline. I want to interview that guy, but I don't think so. Anybody else have anything different, or do you guys pretty much agree?
I'm convinced Big Ben has some incriminating information about Brandon Staley. So
oh, there's a lot of incriminating.
Yeah.
Because man, I'm trying to get it in. Wow. Yeah, no.
No, I mean, look, the Steelers had to win their game first off to even get in, to even have a chance at it. And then I was more thinking, now, if you want to do theories and all that, we could have had a theory if this thing ended in a tie.
Right.
Then we could do
made more
theories and all that.
But Brandon didn't let the analytics get in the way of that.
Yeah, he had to mess it up. So that would have been a better storyline than, how it turned out. So I don't think it was any like conspiracy or anything, no.
And theoretically, Greg, you should honestly be happy the game probably didn't end in a tie, because the Chargers would have been playing the Chiefs. And they gave the Chiefs everything they could handle in both meetings this year.
Yeah.
Hey, but I think we all agree. Brandon?
Yes. Flores to San Diego. Well, not San Diego, LA now. Wow.
Yeah, Chargers. Yeah, LA Chargers. Yeah.
All right, let's go to our handy dandy graphic.
They're acting like San Diego.
Let's go to our handy dandy graphic. They stuck in that zoo down there, huh, Mike?
Oh, God.
So we got Tampa and Philly. I think we can all unanimously agree.
Light work.
Right. San Francisco and Dallas. This is the game, guys. If you ask me. And by the way, let me put my notation in here. Let me see you guys to see my face. I called it week 1. 3 NFC West teams. in the playoffs, and we got it done.
I said
Called it.
all 4 were gonna make it at the beginning of the year. Is what I said.
Fucking Russell Wilson crapped himself. But see, the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys, I'm loving this matchup. I really am, for a lot of different reasons. Number one, just being a lover of football. The storiedness of these franchises individually, and then meeting together to play each other. It just gives me that old 1990s feeling again. And what better way to kind of leave John Madden in his last year with the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Niners, the Packers, the Chiefs, all in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know, on a John Madden fan standpoint, that's what I remember his voice. I remember his voice in the 90s, calling those American team, games. I remember, the Jeff Garcia calls and all that stuff. So it's really, for me, even though I again, I'm a Cardinal fan, so I don't rock with nothing Dallas and nothing Niners. But for me, on a standpoint of the love for the sport and the remembrance of John Madden, this game for me is big for me.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that it's going to be bye-bye Dallas on this one. I got the 49ers in that one.
That's a tough one.
And it's great. It sets up good because Cowboy fans, we know they live in their own little world. So them winning and,
they live right next to Revis Island.
Yeah, they're out there in Revis. Yeah, way out there somewhere. Yeah. Where they still think it's like 1995. And so they're going to be thinking, because they won big against some backups against the Eagles. Oh, look, Dak is, and I was listening to Skip before we came on. He's like, yeah, we about to do this. And then I was like, this is the trap. I'm glad they fell in it. Because when they lose, we're going to hear how about Mike McCarthy sucks, Dak isn't big time, and it's blame everybody. But again, it's only because Jimmy G, what he did in that second half yesterday against the Rams, his job was on the line, and he showed up. And plus with the 49ers defense, also shutting down the Rams in that second half. But I just feel like Jimmy G is going to make a couple more plays than Dak. And I feel like the 49ers have the better defense. I understand, Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, and all that. But I'm going to go with the 49ers front four. I think they're going to make enough plays.
I think you just talked me into it, Greg. I think their play style actually works against the Cowboys because they can do a lot of ball control and run that ball, get that high-powered offense off the field, and that's essentially what you need to do.
Deebo Samuels.
Debo's going to be a problem.
Going
to be a problem. I see Trayvon getting burnt at least twice. He just gambles so much.
Let's go to the stat man. True. That's your new nickname, Dustin. You're no longer allowed to have Baker, Dustin, I don't care what you come up with in the morning. It's stat guy. Let's go to the stat man.
I think if the first round of the playoffs is anything like week 18 was, the playoffs are going to be absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. I was kind of on board with making an 8-team playoff field this year and just doing away with the first round bye since they added that extra game. And I think that would have even brought a whole lot more intrigue into week 18 because of look at how many, with the Colts losing and the Dolphins winning and all this, look at how many other different scenarios would have played into effect for who got that 8 seed as opposed to the 7 seed and anything right now. I mean, the only game that I can see as a legitimate runaway win this weekend is the Chiefs and Steelers and the Buccaneers and Eagles. Otherwise, everything else, I think
Dustin,
either one of those.
I liked you up until this point. You forgot about my Cardinals, bro.
I was getting there.
Oh, the Cardinals are in the playoffs, huh?
But the other 8 teams that play outside of those 2, I think all can win. The Cardinals know the Rams extremely well. They know exactly what the Rams can do. They know they can beat the Rams. But on the flip side, the Rams also know they can beat the Cardinals because they've done it. So it depends on, is the experience from Sean McVay going to get the better of the inexperience of Cliff Kingsbury? Or is the Matthew Stafford of Detroit going to show up, which gives Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense a chance? Then you have like the 49ers in Dallas, where Deebo Samuel is the ultimate X factor, where he can run, he can catch, he can pass, he can do so much other things that Dallas never sees in the NFC East. How is that defense going to adjust to guarding him, especially Trevon Diggs, who gives up just as many big plays as he comes down with? So that's going to be a kind of a key in that situation. And then back to the AFC, I think the Raiders right now are playing with house money. They could have been written off when John Gruden got fired. They could have been written off when Henry Ruggs did what he did and everything that organization went through. But here they are winning 4 games in a row to end the season to get into the playoffs. And everyone, even going back the last couple of weeks, said the Raiders are that one team that if they get into the playoffs, they can make a run because they have the weapons to make a run. They're used to playing teams they're used to playing teams like Kansas City. So if they would win and have to go to Kansas City the next week, depending on what would happen with the Patriots and Bills, that game's not going to faze them. I believe they played the Titans this year and took them down to the wire. None of these teams really are going to be intimidated by anybody, because I think this is the first year that every playoff matchup is a matchup that they have happened in the regular season. I mean, San Francisco and Dallas may not have happened, but the rest of the matchups, I believe, happened during the regular season. So it's not like you're getting a matchup that we haven't seen. Everyone has film on everybody. They all have a previous game film to look at, and playoffs all come down to adjustments and execution. Whatever team can adjust the most and execute the most is going to win. And I don't think seeding is going to matter at this point, whether you're the 1 seed or the 7 seed. I really think the only team I'm going to say I don't think has a chance to get to the Super Bowl is Philadelphia, just because I don't believe in Jalen Hurts yet. I don't believe in that system. But the other 13 teams that are in the playoff field, I think any one of them can come out of each conference, just because it's going to be such a wide open postseason.
And Jay, I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm just saying Antonio Brown left because of John Gruden, and he never even got to play a single game. So if I was Las Vegas, I got 3 guys on DUIs, 1 guy's going to jail for life. John Gruden's gone forever. I might as well just bring AB back just for one last run.
Oh, why not?
I hate AB. I'm still sour. I don't like AB.
I mean, they got like a container on. They probably got a container on probably one of the best attorneys.
Right. So I say F it and call AB. Say, hey, John's gone. Let's run it.
Sure.
I agree. So
hopefully he makes it to the third quarter.
Probably not.
Hopefully they're at home, so he doesn't have to go far. He doesn't wait for Uber afterwards.
Oh man.
Hey, but real quick, we're gonna go ahead and pop it up because you guys know. Before you know what? I'm gonna take a second. I'm gonna do a solid here. Let me go ahead and slide this back up here before I move on to my guys, because Yuki, you're right. I do want to emphasize on this part here. The 49ers made a huge turnaround. I think for the past 3 years, the best team in the league that has not been the best team in the league is the San Francisco 49ers. I think that the past 2 years, their injuries have totally decimated the team. And the scariest part about saying that is those last 2 years, even with decimation through injury, they've looked good. They've looked competitive. They've had the, who's next type of mindset. And they've had running back step up that we didn't even know they had. They really have a 3-headed monster in the backfield, so on and so forth.
Now, Jay, my biggest thing, and I kind of wanted to pose a question to you before you get into the Cardinals about the 49ers. I kind of mentioned it in our little group chat yesterday. I think a lot of people are underestimating the power dynamic and what's about to go down with the San Francisco 49ers. Like, we look at it from that perspective. We know who Kyle Shanahan is. Kyle Shanahan was a
Right.
great offensive coordinator. He's a great offensive-minded guy. And there
Right.
was a specific reason why we did not see a lot of Trey Lance this year. And I think it's a different reason than what a lot of people think. I think instead
I
of
agree.
moving him, instead of sitting with him, he understands in practice, Trey Lance is getting snaps. Trey Lance is getting reps, and he's been playing. And I feel like you're going to see a lot of wildcat offense. You're going to see a lot of trick plays that involve Trey Lance that no team is prepared for because they really don't know where Trey is at from that perspective. Now, when
To
Trey
your
did
point,
play, they
to
ran
your
it.
point, real quick,
Mhm.
Lamar Jackson's first 2 years in the NFL.
Exactly. You don't know what it's going to be. Now, I'm not saying he's going to play like consistently. It's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. But in end zone time and red zone time, I truly do believe there's going to be moments where you see Trey Lance hit the field, and that defense is going to have no idea what to do.
Right. And I 1000% agree with you, Mike, because when they drafted Trey, I said it was a 2-year timetable to he's full-time quarterback.
Right.
I think this year kind of cut that in half. So, not to foreshadow, and move on past the playoffs, but Jimmy Garoppolo is on the trade market,
Right.
The trading block, and I don't think he'll be on the team next year.
Right.
I think they'll have another solid backup that's a lot cheaper than Jimmy Garoppolo,
Mm-hmm.
a la Mariota. But you know what I mean? Those type of guys I can see going over there. But to jump back into what I was saying, Brandon Ayuk, my ASU guy there, when they drafted Brandon, he was drafted to do what Debo's doing. And now Debo kind of stepped up and kind of took over that trick bag that role. So it's really good to kind of see that developing because they still do have Brandon over there to run those type of plays with next year. Now that Debo's done what he's done. But I'm going to switch gears. Let's go into the Cardinals. I'm going to go last because you already know I'm going to be long-winded with it. So let's throw it. We'll start with Mike on this one. Mike, Cardinals, Rams, what you got?
I'm sorry, Jay. I don't want to do you like that, brother. It's tricky. It's tricky because I like the Rams. I love what they're doing. And I think, Cam Akers is going to be a lot more involved going into this week than not. I think the number one question for you would be James Conner. And what does James Conner bring? Because the D-Hop situation is like, we know he's healthy, but he's not healthy. You know what I mean? Kyler Murray, he's healthy, but he's not healthy. James Conner,
back, though.
Yeah, but for a fact, James Conner's not healthy. Like a lot of these guys are banged up, and it's gonna have to be Kirk. It's gonna have to be Rondell Moore and a lot of other guys that are stepping up and really being involved. Edmonds, and I do think that it's just an unfortunate situation that this is the first round matchup. Jay, I'm gonna give it to the Rams, just because of McVay, and I think McVay can figure that out. But if it was any other team, I'd give you the dub, Jay. I promise you I would. If it was any other team.
Hey, I respect that. Just call me Tanny.
My head says the Rams should win that game, but the Cardinals, every time I bet against them, they seem to win that game.
So I'll never go with your head again.
I know. I usually don't. It usually doesn't work anyway in my favor. I'm going to go with the Cardinals, actually. I like the upset. I like the matchup. I think Kyler actually shines on the stage. And I don't know, Matthew Stafford just hasn't really done it for me. He's so inconsistent.
Right.
Like 1 week, he'll ball out. The next week, it's like, what just happened? Like when I saw that game against the Ravens, I was like, who is this guy? I could definitely see it being a trap game. Most people are definitely going to pick the Rams, but I like the Cardinals to upset.
Nice, Damien.
Yeah.
Dustin,
that makes sense. I was just going to say Dustin too, but Damien, you're messing it up, bro. I had love for you.
I'm picking the Rams, and I'm picking them for one reason only. They were my pick to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, so I can't go back on them now no matter who they play.
Dustin, we all make mistakes, sir.
It's nothing against the Cardinals. It's nothing against anybody, but if I make a Super Bowl prediction and they're still in it once the playoff starts, I got to stick with them no matter who they're playing in the first round. Am I going to be surprised if they lose? No. But until they lose, I at least got to honor my pick that I made at the beginning of the year.
Hey, you know what? That's why you're on this panel, Dustin. You made the pick at the beginning of the year. They're still with us. Survival of the fittest. Greg,
Man, this is a tough one to predict. My thing with the Cardinals is, can they slow down Cooper Kupp? Because that's gonna be the game. If they can find a way to do that, then I can see the Cardinals winning this game. Um, all the pressure is on the Rams and on Stafford. This is the reason why they got him. This is it. It's the playoffs. And if it's tight in that fourth quarter, people gonna start getting tight and gonna start getting nervous. It's something about Stafford that I don't trust, and it really showed itself yesterday. I feel like they should have scored more than 24. Again, credit the 49ers defense, but still, Stafford missed some throws, especially the one that ended the game yesterday. I'm going to go with the Cardinals because I feel like Kyler is going to make a couple more plays than Matt Stafford is. But it's all key on, can they slow down Cooper Kupp? If they can slow down Cooper Kupp, the Cardinals are going to win that game. But that's the game within the game. Because if Cooper Kupp goes off and he gets 170 yards and 3 touchdowns and all that, then the Rams are definitely winning. But if they can find a way to slow him down, OBJ is doing, okay. But you saw in that game yesterday, he wasn't really a factor. So I will go with the Cardinals.
okay. Now, all right, guys,
go.
it's my turn. Yep. So let me break it down.
Everybody mute themselves.
No, but seriously, I've told you guys many times. You guys have heard me talk about the Cardinals. I'm very tried to make sure that I'm very, biased when it comes to that, or I'm biased, and try to stay with a clean slate of what's really going on. Week 9, you guys. Week 9 is the last time the Arizona Cardinals have played with their offensive line. The 4 games that we lost this year, Rodney Hudson did not play in them. James Conner missed the last 2 weeks for rest because Chase Edmonds went down in like week 7, 8. Chase Edmonds has been out and James Conner hasn't had a break. He's actually been this is the highest usage he's had since college. So DeAndre Hopkins will not be back. We're okay with that. Rondale Moore has not played in 3 weeks. Okay? There's so many other things that have gone on. Remember, we won enough before we got injured to make the playoffs. Before all these injuries, we were damn near undefeated, you guys. Remember that. We're finally getting our team back. J.J. Watt has been designated to return. Can he play in the wild card? He probably could, because his injury is not going to be about, is he going to be 100%? He won't be 100%. We understand that. But his injury is going to be on how much pain can he withstand while playing this game. And that's what it comes down to. Now, moving forward with the actual game that we're about to play against the Rams, I was hella pissed at this. But again, AJ Green wasn't practicing for those type of plays leading up to that week. That's not the type of position we were supposed to be putting AJ Green in. So he had to take that number 1 role when DeAndre went down. So it's going to take a week or 2 to get the same type of, connection that they had as the number 2 receiver running different routes with the timing that he's going to have as the number 1 receiver running the routes that he's supposed to run. So one thing that you guys will notice when we have our offensive line will migrate with Kyler Murray. So if he runs out of that pocket and reestablishes himself to throw, that offensive line will gradually graduate over and reform that line of scrimmage in front of him, which has not happened since week 9. So again, I'm calling it. We will be facing the San Francisco 49ers in the next round. And I'm calling the score. I'm going to say it's going to be a 31-28 Arizona. So that's my pitch for the Arizona Cardinals and Los Angeles Rams game that's coming up this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be close. Like I said, if the Cardinals can find a way to slow down Cup, they're gonna have a very good chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yuki, we gotta stay there. And you made a great point. Mike, you brought this up as well. I think everybody kind of touched on it. Stafford or Kyler, basically. And the Los Angeles Rams went all in on Stafford. So I think the pressure in this game is more on Stafford and the Rams than it is on us in the first place.
Right.
So I think that's going to work to our advantage as well.
Right. I think it's more pressure based off of when you look at the situation. One, Stafford's never really been to the playoffs to that level of this magnitude of being a favorite. You look at Odell, 1-year deal. You look at Von Miller, 1-year deal. You look at a lot of guys on this team who potentially might not be on the team next year. And you gave away every single draft pick known to man that you have in the next 5 to 6 years in order to acquire these guys. There definitely is a lot of pressure, but I think the one guy I would say in the NFL who I think can handle that kind of pressure without completely changing their identity is Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay has that ability to be that guy. Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin are probably the only other 2 guys I can think of that I think can maintain that identity. And it's a situation though where if it wasn't for my love of the Bears, I would follow Sean McVay to wherever he goes because Sean McVay is one of my favorite people to watch. The guy was in the damn end zone yesterday after Higbee's second touchdown. Like it was the greatest thing I've ever seen ever. And I wish they did a photo op of it and they all took a picture in the end zone because it would have been the dopest shit in the world. But I really do think McVay out of all people is the perfect person for this kind of matchup because he just gets it, man. And he just understands every type of quarterback, how to handle every situation. And the only time he ever got was by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So, it's not a bad one to lose to. I think that's one you can kind of hold on with your head high and just say you got outbested. But now it's a few years later and he's learned a lot more. So I'm excited for it.
Right. Before we move on from the NFL, I did see here we had a comment from Yuri. Let me pull that up here. Give me a second. And Dustin, I'll let you kind of go lead the way with this one. Derek Carr versus Joe Burrow, just about that. How do you think about that, just the quarterback matchup alone? We've already talked about the Bengals and the Raiders itself.
I think Burrow is a more talented quarterback all around, but he also has more weapons than Derek Carr has. He's got Jamar Chase, he's got T. Higgins, he's got Tyler Boyd, and he's got Joe Mixon. And yet Derek Carr just had the best season of his career with next to nobody really outside of Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, who missed 5 or 6 weeks anyways, and yet Derek Carr still put up the numbers he put up. Both of these quarterbacks are going to be playing in their first playoff game. Both the head coaches are going to be coaching in their first playoff game. This is the second time in the last 14 years that the Raiders made the playoffs. This is the first time in 5 years that the Bengals made the playoffs. So essentially, everybody on this roster is playing in their first playoff game, essentially. Do I think the Bengals have the better team than the Raiders? I do, just because of the young talent they acquired. But I still give the Raiders the slight edge just because Derek Carr has been in playoff type games before, like whether it was like a week 17 matchup where they needed to win and get in and things like that, and he hasn't been able to do it up until last night. But at least he has a little bit more of that big game experience than Joe Burrow does, and I think that alone gives him the slight edge over Burrow this weekend. But everything else is pretty much an equal matchup just because neither one of these teams has the playoff experience that everybody else does.
Do you feel the same way, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, look, Burrow, I think he's if I had to pick between the two, I would go with Burrow. I think he's, he's a little bit better than Derek Carr. But yes, Burrow has more weapons, and look, Derek Carr has had a great season with the weapons that he's had. Of course, he doesn't have a Chase or a T. Higgins like a Burrow does, but like I said earlier, now we're gonna see if Derek Carr is that top 10 quarterback.
Probably not.
And I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that even if they lose this game, that he can't be. Like I said, if they lose,
I say it.
Yeah, if they lose by 3, and Carr played a good game, okay. But if they come out there and they get blown off the field, he's going to have to take some blame in that. So I'm interested to see that game because I want to see if Derek Carr can come through in a big game. This is his big game. He wanted to be in the playoffs. He's in it now. So let's see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, look, we're all looking forward to the playoffs this week. We're going to be covering more, probably going more depth in regards to each individual game throughout the week leading up to the playoffs, which you guys...
Jay, to answer that last comment that just popped up on the screen, if the Rams even consider firing Sean McVay, even if he loses the playoff game, their front office is asinine and stupid.
I agree.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
And it should start with the front office anyways for making that dumb trade. Anyways, but, leading into that, the NFL did set up a wonderful schedule. We got our first Monday Night Football playoff game. So that should be amazing. Got a Saturday game, Sunday game. So we got a wonderful week of football ahead of us. Staying in football, moving outside of the NFL, the USFL has announced 4 head coaches for their season coming up. Just wanted to kind of bring them, kind of highlight them a little bit for a second. And so basically, I'll bring that back up here again. Dustin, if you want to kind of highlight as well on this, what do you think of these hirings?
I mean, the first 4 announced, I think one is pretty much a given. The Mike Riley hiring makes a ton of sense just because he coached the San Antonio Commanders in the AAF when they were before the XFL back in 2019. So him coaching in the spring league is something he's familiar with, and he kind of understands how things go. He's also had experience in the NFL as the Chargers head coach in the 90s. He's had plenty of success with multiple college programs. So for him taking a gig like this at 65 or 66 years old, it just makes sense because it keeps him in coaching.
Right.
Kevin Sumlin, I think, is actually a very intriguing hire, mainly because we saw how good he was when he was at Texas A&M, but then he goes to Arizona and completely craps the bed and has to leave Arizona. So I'm curious to see what he's going to do with NFL caliber players. Yet they're not in the NFL yet, but they have a chance to be. So I'm kind of curious to see what he can do with the USFL and if he has success as a head coach in the spring, is that going to open the door to a possible NFL opportunity down the road, whether as a coordinator or something? Who knows? Same thing with Todd Haley. Todd Haley was coach of your Cardinals, Jay, for what, I think 5 or 6 years, and
Yeah, he did. It was a love-hate relationship with
showed
Todd.
potential, but he never was able, I think, to capitalize on the potential he showed.
Right.
And he was one of those guys that I honestly thought would get another chance to be a head coach after he left Arizona, and for whatever reason never got that opportunity. So maybe
I'll tell you, us Cardinal fans know why. But go ahead.
Well, maybe this is that opportunity, like that thing to open the door for a possible opportunity again, where they can kind of see what he does. And the other coach, I think, is Bart Andrus or something like that. I don't know much about him, so I really can't give too much on him. But as of yesterday, 2 more names have emerged as possible head coaches, with Marvin Lewis being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Lewis, I think, would be
ASU.
he would be a great hire for any team in the USFL for the same reasons of Mike Riley, a guy that's had plenty of NFL experience as a head coach, did very well with Cincinnati for 9 or 10 years. He's worked in the spring league before as an announcer, so he has those NFL ties. He knows exactly what it takes to get these players ready. And if these players get NFL caliber coaches, this is kind of opening the door where you could potentially have the XFL, when they return, merge with the USFL and basically kind of create that
Ultimate League
16-team kind of spring feeder program, and maybe treat it like the NBA treats the G League, where you could have 15 players on 2-way contracts where they bounce between the spring league and the NFL team to fill out practice squads and things like that, so teams don't have to constantly sign all these practice squad players. They'll literally have maybe 2 teams designated to one of these 16 organizations, and you kind of pick and choose who you want to take.
Yeah, I mean, and USFL, NFL, if you guys need my guy Dustin, just reach out. I have all of his information. You guys, it sounds like you guys need him to set you guys stuff up. But no, you brought up a really good point there, is, bringing in guys like Todd Haley, Kevin Sumlin, Mike Riley, mentioning guys like Marvin Lewis, those type of notoriety, backgrounds and resumes that are coming to these teams, it's going to bring that, it's going to get rid of that is this real question. How professional are they going to be? How skilled are the players going to be? That kind of wipes that away when you get those type of coaches to come in and back you, bringing back that resume. So, I mean, I'm going to switch it over to you, Greg. Do you think with those names, without hearing about players, without hearing about anything else going on in that organization, do you think that's going to help bring fans in with curiosity?
Yeah. I mean, it can. Just like me, just as much as Mike hates Nagy, I have that same hate for Todd Haley. He did absolutely nothing when he was here in Kansas City, but
he didn't do much for us either.
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
yeah,
Nagy. It's crazy how the world.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. But I was actually surprised that he even got a.
Is that going to be a new thing we're going to say, guys? Everybody's somebody's Nagy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I was surprised that he actually, got a USFL, job. But I think I am interested to see the league once it starts. Mike Riley was always kind of those coaches, like he was a real players coach. He was nice to everybody, and all that. Might not have won a lot of games, when he was in the NFL. He was better at college. Mm-hmm. But, I'm interested to see Kevin Sumlin and, those guys and see how they do. Maybe if Kevin Sumlin does good there, maybe he can get another college job, or maybe he could get a NFL job by doing well in USFL. So I'm interested to see how it all shakes out. So
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting league. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope it's nothing like the AFL or something like the Canadian Football League. Like, I hope it is just a straight up new league that everybody gets open opportunities and open looks. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, expand a lot of horizons. And if you could pull up that one comment. I liked it. I liked it. I didn't think it was a rude comment where it says, I hope they don't fold, because we've seen time and time again of football leagues that fold under the pressure of maintaining success and maintaining consistency. And the USFL is putting it into a point to where you're bringing in these big name guys and you're hoping that they just have more of a basis of what they're trying to do rather than just throwing in big names. When I see big names like Mark Trestman, not that he's a big name, but he's an NFL guy, going back to the Canadian League, I'm like, that really does nothing for the Canadian League other than it being an NFL name. So I'm hoping they have more statured into how they're going to go about continuing to make this league productive and make this league successful, rather than just, it would be like if the ASAP network were to bring in Shannon Sharp and then to do nothing else for the rest of the ASAP network's longevity. Like, it's nice to have that name brand, but if we aren't building upon our brand and trying to be better, it does nothing for you. So it needs to be bigger than just big names.
Don't let this be the plateau.
Right. I think this is a good start.
Right. And again, guys, I'm telling y'all today, this is the last day you'll ever see another name under this man's face. Stat guy dropping some more gems, I should say. Mike Riley as a head coach was 113-99 as a college coach. Okay. He was 5-3 as a spring coach for the AAF. And I'm going to bring, these other alternative leagues and things like that into fold. I do want to highlight as well, the AAL 2 is kicking off here soon. They're going to be kicking off at the end of March, beginning of April. Look out for them. There's other leagues out there that give other players out there opportunities to still stay fit, still stay in game shape while they're continuing their journey to try to make it to the NFL. But they will be starting up here too. So look out for the AAL as that goes on. Yuri, bro. Right. Bringing in Adam Schefter, Randy Moss, and then not doing anything else. Right, Mike?
Yep.
Real quick, guys, I did want to, since today's Monday, we missed it over the weekend, but I did want to slide Mr. Nate the Great on here. He had a little snippet he wanted to say, but I wanted to say happy birthday to you first, live on air. So happy birthday, bro.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. So I just found out some breaking news that Dave Gettleman for the New York Giants, he has informed that he is planning on retiring.
Wow. Well, Black Monday doesn't always mean you're fired. It could mean that you quit. But most of the time,
it could mean that you quit or be fired. So,
most of the time, though, Dustin, it means
you're fired.
Yep. Right. So let's transition real quick. We did spend a awful lot of time today, guys, on that football, and that's because we're all excited. Let's be honest, we're excited.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing quick before we switch?
Yeah.
What the USFL needs to do, though, is they need to learn from the AAF and XFL's mistakes. The AAF got it right when it came to the head coaches they hired, because they had guys like Mike Riley, Mike Singletary, Mike Martz, and all these coaches that actually coached in the NFL before. And then if you look at what the XFL did, yes, they had Mark Trestman, yes, they had Jim Zorn, but all the rest of the coaches in the XFL were assistant coaches or coordinators in the NFL that really had no head coaching experience.
Right.
XFL got it right.
Guys like Johnny Manziel didn't help.
Yep. XFL got it right because they put most of their games in smaller venues that held 20, 25,000 people. So if you're selling 16,000 tickets, it still looks like a pretty good crowd at a 25,000 person venue, as opposed to the AAF. They were getting 20,000 people in a 70,000 seat venue, so it always looked like the stadium was empty. So the USFL needs to not only make sure they're bringing in coaches that have that NFL experience and have that big name, but if they're bringing it to like a city that has multiple stadiums, don't try to put it in a 65,000 people stadium because you're not going to fill it. Focus on these smaller venues to try to make it look like you're filling up these stadiums, and then that league will last longer and gain more popularity because more people will want to see it then.
Right. And you got to, and that's the other thing. It's just like, I'll give you guys an example that's kind of, off the sector, but I can pair it with exactly what you just said. It's just like starting what we're doing here or doing anything else like that you need followers or you need people to come behind you. They're building a fan base there. You can go out and make artificial fans, kind of make it seem like there's a lot of people there, make it seem like you have a lot of hype and giving out free tickets and things like that. But building it organically, taking your time, and kind of teaching your fan base what you're doing with the game is, I think, the way that the USFL should go, as far as building that fan base, so that way people can grow with the USFL. Because football, there's a love for football, but you got to make them love you. And I think that's what they need to figure out. And I think that's what's been missing with the last two organizations with what they've been trying. See, and I don't know if that's not cool. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll see. But I don't like that for fan base. It doesn't bring nothing for me. If my team is not playing here, it's not my team. It's just a team called the same state that I live in. But moving on from football, like I said, we were all excited. We took a long time of football. Throughout the week, we'll be going into each individual game a little bit more. So we got about a 15, 20-minute fire sale, let's say, guys. Let's shoot. I'll throw some topics out. You guys give me your thoughts. We'll play a little game, so to speak, on that. So let's first, with basketball, I want to talk about that game last night. We had the Grizzlies and the Lakers. That was a big game. Ja Morant is, this year he's been showing up against LA. Last night he ended 16 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. He ended up with a block and a steal, as he led the way for the Memphis Grizzlies to beat the Los Angeles Lakers again, 127-119. One thing I want to emphasize on the Memphis side of the ball, Triple J, 21 points, 12 rebounds, an assist, 6 blocks, and a steal. Jaren Jackson, I want to put my hands together for this dude. He's had a hard little road, so to speak, to get to this point with injuries, things like that, fans booing him, not wanting him there. And last night, I think he kind of showed why people that are behind Jaren Jackson are waiting for him to get everything together. Dustin, how do you feel about that game last night? Where do you kind of put an update, so to speak, 10 days into 2022 on the Lakers and the Grizz?
I think the Grizzlies are quietly becoming a team in the Western Conference that nobody wants to play. Ja Morant is proving that he's a top 5 player in this league and a top 3 guard. Jaren Jackson is a rising star, and this Memphis team, outside of those 2 players, they really don't have a star. It's just a bunch of players that play together very well, know what they want to do, and they just execute perfectly. And that's always a tough matchup for anybody, is when you have a team that's filled with a bunch of guys that just know how to execute. And that's exactly what this Memphis team does. They have 2 go-to players, but everyone else just goes on the court and executes. Then you got the Lakers, who, they've been playing better the last couple weeks, but are we still sold on the Lakers at this point without Anthony Davis? And until Anthony Davis comes back, I don't think anyone can be sold on the Lakers yet, because when Anthony Davis was there, that team was not playing that well. Granted, LeBron James was missing time when Anthony Davis was there. Davis and James and Westbrook, Davis and James have really yet to play an extended stretch of games together. So we don't know how this team is going to look until those 3 guys can get like 10 or 15 games in a row together under their belt to kind of start gelling and feeling each other out. Now, if they get together and if they start playing well, then yes, then the Lakers are going to be a threat in the Western Conference because those are three of the best players over the last 10, 15 years in the league. But that's the big question. It's if, because Davis has been injured the last couple of years. LeBron James is getting older and he's going to be injured. They're going to be nagging injuries where he's going to sit a couple games here and there. Same thing with Westbrook. He's getting older too, where he's going to have to sit a couple games down the stretch. So it's getting to the point now where the Lakers need to get healthy before I think anyone takes them serious, just because you haven't seen them all together for an extended period of time yet.
Right. That makes total sense. Great.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ja Morant is that dude, first off. And but with the Lakers, look, I mean, Dustin hit it. James, Westbrook, Davis, they still don't have a flow together because of people missing games and being injured. But I'm looking at the stat line. So Westbrook was 2 for 12 for 6 points. I'm like, they're not gonna go anywhere unless Russell Westbrook is either gonna, 1, shoot better, or 2, start playing better defense. I mean, they're looking at being a play-in team. And this is not where, I mean, those are Ben Simmons numbers that Russell Westbrook put up. This is getting bad, So Freddie, I know Freddie loves the Lakers, but they're not even better. I mean, the Clippers are better than them right now, if you want to be completely honest about it. So
now, that's a sad day in LA.
That's a sad day, ain't it?
That is a sad day in Los Angeles, California. Ain't enough palm trees and cool weather to make that sound better. I tell you what. Oh man, Mike, how you feeling, man?
I love it. I love it for my guys. I love it for Jim. I love it for Randy, Daniel, everybody on from Off in the Bench podcast. I think it's an amazing thing what in Memphis they're doing, is because what Lakers fans love to do is say, well, if Ja doesn't drop 40, they don't win that game. And Ja said, all right, fine, I'll drop 16. I could give a shit. And they still win that game. So it's to the sense of that Memphis is real, and it doesn't matter what rate Ja is at during that game. It's his presence alone is going to win him that game, not the points amount scored. The team overall is very solid, and Dylan Brooks still hasn't found himself to be that true number 2 yet. And I feel like once he finds himself in that role, which I think by the end of the season he will, you're going to start to see an even more intensified backcourt from them. So I'm really excited about it. They're legit. LA, yeah. That's tough, but yeah, I'm just tired. I'm tired of talking about it. Like, there's nothing new I can add to that conversation that hasn't already been beaten like a dead horse for the last 10 weeks.
You know what? With that being said, that's our last LA topic when it comes to the Lakers for the week. We're going to leave the Lakers alone for this week.
Until something happens. Until something real happens.
Thank you.
I don't care.
Thank you. We're gonna change the narrative on these things, Mike, because you're right. The Lakers are gonna be talked about every day, whether they're good or bad. So this is our last Laker topic for the week. Now, that gives me a good segue. If we're not gonna talk about the Lakers, but we're gonna stay in the West, we're not gonna talk about my Suns, which I don't have on right now. Let's talk about Mr. Klay Thompson's return.
Yes, sir.
7 for 18, 3 for 8 from 3, a block. He played 20 minutes with 17 points. The efficiency's still there. Dustin, how did he look?
Better than I expected him to, honestly. I thought he would come out and hit a couple shots early just because of having all that adrenaline and all the emotion running through him. But after that, I kind of felt that he would struggle a little bit, just kind of getting his feet wet again, getting back to the NBA speed. But if Golden State wasn't the title favorites before this, they are definitely the title favorites now because Thompson just came in and proved that he's just going to fit in nicely and just go do what he was doing pre-injury.
They said Team Lightskin's back, and it was for real. So I agree with you, Dustin. I mean, he surprised the hell out of me.
That dunk that he had in the second half, that was like he showed more hops on that dunk than he showed in like 3 years. I'm just sitting there like, where the heck did that come from?
And Dustin, you're being nice. I'm gonna say his career.
Yeah,
Klay Thompson don't do those.
Yeah, it comes torn Achilles and a torn ACL later. Like where did this happen? Where did this come from?
Can we talk to your surgeon? Can we talk to your surgeon? Mike?
I mean, I loved it. It was the energy that I was holding on to. Last night, Fanatics.com had a little sale going on, $56 James Klay Thompson jerseys. I had to buy one, had to get one. He's been my favorite player. Jay knows how I roll. Top 5 right now: Derrick Rose, Ja, Klay, Jimmy Butler. Maybe DeMar sneaks in there if he.
I'm tired of y'all not putting Devin Booker where he should be. Damn it.
Nah, Devin's up there. I'm just saying, if DeMar gets me to the finals, I'm gonna have to move Devin over a little bit. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't even gonna hold you.
Well, Mike, if DeMar gets to the finals, you're gonna be playing Devin anyway, so don't worry.
Oh, we'll see about that. But we might be playing Klay. But no, Klay looked amazing, man. And to not hoop in over 940 something days.
Right.
To look the way he did, he pissed me off. He made me. I was gonna punch him in his fucking face. Because you tore your ACL dunking, and then you came back for the first time in 2 years and dunked. And I looked at him. I said, "What are you?" I loved it, but I was like, "Bro, this is how that happened in the first place."
I guess if you dunk the basketball, you got to have 5 dunks in your career before you retire from dunking.
Oh, for sure. But it's definitely a situation to where I think Klay is going to be great. I love Klay's. I'm a Steph guy. Everybody is. I don't see one person in this world that hates Stephen Curry. But Klay Thompson was always my favorite player from that Warriors dynasty. Just the overall play to him, the fun aspect of him. He's just a cool guy. And you just love stories like that. I think it's going to be amazing. And especially when Draymond's healthy and Wiseman gets back, this team's going to be a problem.
I agree 100%. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, Klay coming back, it made Golden State even better than what they already was. That dunk was something else. I didn't know he could get surgery and all of a sudden get hops, from getting surgery. But look, Golden State, I feel like they're gonna make it all the way to the finals, barring someone getting injured. And remember, Klay, during those dynasty years, he would be the one that would get hot and go on those streaks.
Right.
Oh, he's made 15 straight points. Oh, he's made 7 straight threes. Like
he ain't missed the 3 in 32 games.
Exactly right. Right. And in that game 6 against the Thunder, that infamous game 6, it was Klay Thompson that got hot in that fourth quarter. So Klay Thompson being back, it makes the Warriors even better than what they already were, which they were already good. It's going to come down between them and the Suns in the Western Conference. To me, it doesn't matter who the 1 seed is. A game 7 at anybody's house, I think the road team will be good enough to win. So it doesn't matter as far as the seeding. But I could see a Warriors-Bulls final. Sure.
Man, we're gonna lose.
I mean, but for the Bulls to get there for the first time, since the Jordan era, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
If it did happen that way. Yeah.
Right. I agree. Yeah. We definitely can't argue that. Greg, I'm gonna keep it right there with you real quick as we move through this little fire sale. Let's take the next 10 minutes, run through some little things, and get up out of here, guys. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right. Greg, national championship game. Where we at? We going Georgia Bulldogs or are we roll, tie, roll?
It's a big game. I never go against Nick Saban in a big game. It's going to be Roll Tide. That dynasty continues to roll on.
Sound like a betting man, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's only been few people that have beat Nick Saban in these, games. And in this type of game, it always comes down to, okay, if you're going to be Saban, who is going to be Superman for Georgia? Is it going to be Stetson Bennett? Is it going to be somebody from that defense? Somebody has to be Superman. I just don't see it. And I believe the game will be closer than what it was when they played in the SEC title game. But I have Bama winning that game. I just think Bryce Young he's gonna find a way to make those big plays. Bama's defense, I think, shows up too in this game. So I'm going with Bama by, I'm gonna say 7. It'll be close. We'll say 27-20. 27-20.
27-20. All right.
27-20.
See, and see, I can roll with the 27-20 because that gives me a little bit of defense through 3 quarters and a splash at the end. Just a splash of tonic.
Just a splash.
Just a splash of tonic.
Jay, are you talking about the all-time record, like going back to the history books, or since
you got me, sir.
So they've met 71 times. And Alabama leads the overall series 42-25-4.
Did you guys hear that? This is why we call him the stat man. 72 matchups. 45-20, you said?
Hold on one second. I just took it off. Hold on.
44-25, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 44, 42-25-4.
42-25-4. Mike, with that being said, 42-25-4.
With Alabama on a 7-game win streak.
Is this going to be number 8, Mike?
Yeah, blowout, not even close. It's done. I'm sorry.
That's it.
I'm going to say this in the most respectful way possible. I don't even know the name of the kid who throws the ball for Georgia. I don't. And I think a lot of people who don't follow college football like that couldn't either. Now, I know Bryce Young. I know Nick Saban. I couldn't name 5 players on Georgia, and that's just being real. So I'm not betting against Nick.
Yeah. And that does bring up a good point. Alabama has standouts. Alabama has those particular position players that they always have set up and ready for these big moments to stand out and make their first round stamp. And, this looks like the setting for another one of those games.
Yeah, I just feel like it's going to come down to if Bama starts off hot, they're up 10-0, 13-0. Yes, that's when you can see a blowout. But if Georgia starts off and they get the lead first, that's gonna work in their favor because now Stetson Bennett doesn't have to do too much. Now they can just run the ball, do the short pass, rely on their defense. What got Georgia caught up when they last played was they fell behind.
Right.
And Stetson Bennett is not the type of quarterback where, we're down 2 touchdowns. Come on, Stetson, you can get us back in the game. No, he's not going to get you back in the game. He's not that kind of quarterback. So if Georgia starts off with the lead first, they're going to have a good chance of winning. If that don't happen and Bama starts it off and they're leading, it's gonna be a long night, possibly.
Dustin, yes. Any changes there? How you feel about it?
Here's the key stat that everyone needs to take into consideration for tonight.
Mr. Statman.
Nick Saban is 25-1 against his former assistant coaches. Jimbo Fisher was the first one of his assistant coaches to beat him this year with Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby Smart is 0-4 against Nick Saban with a SEC championship loss and then a college football playoff loss a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is pointing towards Nick Saban. Everything is pointing towards Alabama. But I am going to go with Georgia. I am going to go with Kirby Smart just because I'm looking back at when they played in the college football semifinal. Georgia looked better than Alabama did. Georgia had arguably a tougher opponent than what Alabama had, and Georgia hit Michigan in the mouth early and often, and that 34-11 score was not as close as that score was. That looked like a game that Georgia was up like 42-49-0, and then they just took their feet off the gas in the final 15 minutes and kind of let Michigan get into a little groove versus Cincinnati converts on a couple plays here or there. That's a much different outcome than what their score indicated against Alabama. If Georgia comes out and plays the way they did against Michigan and Alabama comes out and plays the way they did against Cincinnati, Georgia should win this game by 2 touchdowns. Just because Georgia played a complete 60-minute game versus Alabama, I only think played maybe 35 to 40 minutes of that 60-minute game because Cincinnati gave them a fit up until midway through the third quarter when Desmond Ridder kind of started to lose his consistency that he showed all year, and after that it was downhill. But there's one play in that game where Ridder hit the tight end for 34 yards, brought the ball down to the 20, and it got called back because of holding. Take away that holding call, Cincinnati cashes in. It's a 17-13 game at minimum, or 17-17, and you're looking at a much different outcome. Or 13. They only had 6 points, but Georgia, I like. I don't know. I don't think the Georgia game the first time against Alabama was indicative of how this Georgia team has played all year. I think that was just more of a case where Georgia picked the worst time to play their worst game of the year. And at the same time, it was also probably the best thing that could have happened to Georgia because they know that's not the type of team they are. And I just don't see them playing that bad again.
Yeah. So real quick, we'll make this one our last topic before we get up out of here. Number 1 pick, the draft's coming up April 28th through 30th. We are now, done with this weekend, the season. We have a national championship game to kind of seal the deal for college football. So now we move on to probably one of my favorite parts of football, the NFL draft. And, looking at the first 2 picks, it looks like it's Jacksonville and Detroit. Neither one of them need a quarterback, which is good because this is a horrible quarterback draft. Who do you guys see as the top 2 candidates for the number 1 pick? And out of the 2 candidates that you see as the top 2, who's yours? I'm going to start with Greg.
Well, Hutchinson out of Michigan, he's definitely first. To me, he was the best pass rusher to me during the college season. Thibodeau also at Oregon. He's also good. So you can't go wrong with either of those 2. I believe is it Jacksonville that has the first pick?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm Jacksonville, I'll go with Hutchinson. He'll be a good pass rush. Him and Miles Jack, they'll make a good,
1-2.
Yeah, they'll make a great 1-2. So I think that will work for Jacksonville, and then the Lions getting Thibodeau, it still works out for the Lions too. So can't go wrong either way. Even if Jacksonville went with Thibodeau instead, then it still works out. But
that makes sense.
But I think Hutchinson. I just think nothing against Thibodeau. I think he's great, but I just think Hutchinson is a better pass rusher. So,
Dustin,
I agree with Greg that Hutchinson is the best player in the draft, but he will not go number 1. And the reason why I say that is Jacksonville has the most cap space of any team this offseason. So they're going to invest it pretty much on every ounce of that franchise and every asset they can. One of the biggest needs that Jacksonville has at this point is they need an offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence. 6'7", 350-pound Evan Neal from Alabama is most likely going to enter the draft after his junior year. And he is a left tackle, which is pretty much where I think Jacksonville is going to go, because at 6'7", 350 pounds, you're going to be paid to block Trevor Lawrence for 5 years. So I think Jacksonville goes there. And I think Detroit goes with Hutchinson at pick number 2, just because they need that defensive pass rushing help. That was kind of one of the weaknesses that the Lions had on defense. So adding a guy like Hutchinson kind of fits that Dan Campbell toughness mantra that he's put in Detroit, because that is one tough player from a Big Ten school in Michigan. It would be a very nice pick for Detroit, and he would get to stay close to where he played college.
Mike, before I go over to you and let you answer this one, did Dustin kind of highlight a possible trade back from 1 to 3 with the Houston Texans trading up to 1 to possibly get their Madden Aiden?
I don't think so. I don't think the Texans are in a position to where they need to trade up. Most of the time, I should say most of the time, when you trade up, it's for the right guy because you're about to make a playoff push. And the Chicago Bears did it very similarly, to where they established their defense. They established what they were doing. They were top 10. They brought in all these offensive weapons. All they really needed was to get a quarterback. And that was the biggest thing they did. And I'm talking about the first time, not the second time. If you take Deshaun Watson, it makes sense. But for the Texans, you have so many other needs. I just don't feel like trading other assets makes sense to move up, because there's no clear-cut guy that you really need. Now, you've seen time and time again what they did with J.J. Watt, and that was nothing. So getting a generational pass rusher really doesn't do anything for me until you have a QB1, until you have an offensive line. And honestly, I think they need to change that route and that dynamic of it the same way the Bears do. But it's for Jacksonville. I do agree with Dustin. I agree with Greg as well. Hutchinson, a dog. He is generational. He is going to be doing his thing. I think he has all the potential in the world to be generational. Not that he already is. But the thing is, like you said, they have one of the most cap space in the NFL, and there are a lot of guys available on the defensive end of things, and you can really construct the top 10 defense via free agency rather than drafting. And protecting Trevor Lawrence is one of those situations where, unless it's Jamar Chase, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, Penei Sewell should have went to the Bengals, but they took a chance because they knew what him and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase had together in LSU. And it worked out. But had it not, it would have looked like a situation where, why didn't you take Penei Sewell and Joe Burrow still getting banged up and this, and this? But for Jacksonville, I think it all starts with the offensive line, because, one, their offensive line isn't that far off. I think they're a lot better than people think. I think they just don't have that one guy that you could look into the future and say he's going to be the cornerstone of this offensive line, and that's what you get here. And honestly, if I'm Detroit at 2, if they do take Hutchinson at 1, I take another offensive lineman. I do, because you already have Penei Sewell, and now you can bring in another generational type offensive lineman from Alabama. You can do something with that I think speaks more volumes than to the fact of bringing in Hutchinson.
It's a good way to look at it.
Because they've never gave a shit about their offensive line ever. So to be able to get that established now, especially with Jared Goff, who already has his own issues, I think it speaks volumes to what they're trying to do.
Right. Me myself, I mean, I won't go too deep into it. I agree with majority of the aspects of what you guys said. I got Hutchinson and then Neal as my 1-2, only because Thibodeau had those injuries that we saw him deal with this year. I really like Thibodeau as well, but if I'm an organization and I'm drafting, I'm not drafting the guy that's injured over the 2 prospects on the board that are also generational prospects as well. So I got Hutchinson and then Neal as my 1-2s. I go a little bit more on the Dustin side with Jacksonville. They probably should go Neal first, but I don't know if you can pass up Hutchinson. with that being said, over this weekend, me and Mike had the pleasure of interviewing a guy by the name of Rick, who is running the Charlotte Bats grassroots organization trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte. If you missed that interview, it was a really good interview. You should definitely check it out on the ASAP network. You can find it on our YouTube. Remember, tonight we got Bring It, hosted by your very own Yoel. Great show. If you haven't seen that, tune in. We also have Real Talk coming on tonight. So that's another thing. And then it is time that we debut our second channel, basically, to the network, ASAP Plus. Just more of the great things that you see here on ASAP. We want to give everybody a chance. So we were running out of slots, so we had to make a new channel. So we love that type of growth. And they'll be debuting on that side, their first show, which again, we talked about earlier. Tonight at 6 Central, the all-women's show, the Sports Senseis, hosted by your co-host or your host, the Sensei, Alana. So she'll be on there as well. Again, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in to us. We'll be back tomorrow. Before we get out of here, any closing remarks from anybody?
Nope, mine's been covered.
Oh man, it's like I said, it's always awesome to be on, man. It is a new year. It's playoff time. And I'm ready for my Chiefs to get back to the Super Bowl, man. So let's go.
Right. Yeah. Dustin?
Like I said earlier in the show, if the playoffs are anything like Week 18 was, I think fans can expect the unexpected this year in the playoffs, and I think it's going to be one of the best NFL postseasons we've had in a long time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to the audience out there, if you guys want to hear topics, you guys want to hear a discussion on something, we don't just talk basketball. We don't just talk football. We talk everything. You want to hear something, let us know. Send us an email. Send it to Greg, Dustin, Mike, myself. We'll get you guys going. We want to, we're here for y'all. So at the end of the day, thank you guys for tuning in with us. The best way to, help us succeed is like our social media pages, share our content, subscribe to our YouTube, and again, watch us on Tiki Live. So till tomorrow, we will see you guys later.
Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.